A lot of talk this week about the economic impact of that new iPhone being released by Apple. Take a look at this. JP Morgan estimates the iPhone could add $3.2 billion to the nation's GDP in the next quarter alone. But the Federal Reserve is not counting on Apple. They also announced some steps this week to boost the economy, embarking on a new round of what's known as quantitative easing, which is bond buying, $40 billion of mortgage-backed securities each month to help boost the economy. George, I'm just taking a guess that you're not a big supporter of this.
Well, quantitative easing is how the government talks when it's really eager not to be understood. Quantitative easing is the government printing money. Now, printing presses are so 20th century, they do it digitally. Never mind. It's expanding the money supply. And it's part of not mission creep, but mission gallop on the part of the Fed, which is on its way to becoming the fourth branch of government, accountable to no one and restrained by nothing, as far as I can tell, in exercising both monetary and fiscal policy. The interesting thing is this: it used to have one mandate: protect the currency as a store of value, prevent inflation. Then we added a second mandate: maximize employment. Now we've forgotten the first and concentrated solely on the second, to produce trickle-down economics. The whole point of this is to drive people out of bonds and into riskier assets such as equities. Great effect on the stock market, where the equities are owned by a tiny portion of the American people, in the hope that the wealth effect as the stock market goes up will cause the wealthy in America to spend and invest, and the results will, guess what, trickle down to the rest of us. Now, banks have $1.5 trillion in reserves. Companies have $2 trillion of cash sitting on the sidelines. Who in America is not buying a house because a 30-year mortgage at 3.5% is too high? Who is not hiring workers because lending is too expensive now?
Okay. You know, it's an extraordinary move by the Federal Reserve to take 8 weeks before an election. And economists will differ over, whether or not it'll actually have an effect on the economy, but it will have an effect on Capitol Hill. You will see a move to kind of clip the Fed's wings and say, get back to the original purpose of controlling inflation. I think that you hear a lot of talk about the Fed on the Hill, but this gives impetus to doing something to limit it.
The thing is, inflation is under control. Yes, there's a lot of money out there. It's not moving. We're keeping interest rates low. We're giving opportunities for investment in housing and other sectors. But it's got to be coupled with other measures. So the president's announced that a new target to get rid of half of our oil imports by 2020. That will put another $150 billion, keep it inside the U.S. economy. It's a big deal, and it can be done. He's announced new manufacturing initiatives. We're bringing jobs back from overseas. And we needed to move forward and do something about the home mortgage foreclosures. So there's been some efforts on this. There's some frustration on this. We need some bipartisan work on this. I remember debating Karl Rove in 2008 on this, and he was very, very firm that we're not going to help people who have home mortgage problems. But when you've got more than 5 million home mortgages out there underwater waiting for foreclosure, I think we need some action on it.
Look, what this is the Fed printing money in order to pay for Barack Obama's debt. And the one thing in your litany you didn't mention, General, is the debt. This country is facing a crisis that's a totally unavoidable crisis. $16 trillion we hit during the Democratic National Convention. And the extent to which this president has shown absolutely no leadership to deal with it, you've now got the Fed stepping in. You've now also got another credit rating agency in just the last 24 hours downgrading the United States of America. That has never happened before, and we've had it happen now twice on President Obama's watch.
Gwen, we got about 30 seconds left.
So Liz brings it back to politics, what I'm saying is that you look at this completely through a political lens. Ben Bernanke, every time he steps up and doesn't do something like this, people go, oh no, the markets go down. He comes up and he does this, and people say, aha, this is a way of getting the president elected. The problem is that nothing he announced this week is going to make any difference in the next 7 weeks, except it's going to create the idea that something is being done. And that's what I think everybody here is talking about, this idea that something is being done, not necessarily something that will have an immediate effect.
But it's an economic argument. I mean, it does have a political impact because we're in the middle of a presidential campaign. But when the Fed is printing money in order to buy debt, it's an economic
Thanks to all of you. The conversation will continue online. General Clark, Liz Cheney will answer your questions on Twitter @General Clark and @Liz_Cheney.